but that was a...
My name is Jerome Ferry. My cameraman is Alan Eggers. We're doing a video interview with Marge Goodman, who has been a school teacher in the Cedar Rapids area for 35 years. Marge, tell us when and what year you were born. Or, I'm sorry, when and where you were born?
I was born in June of 1924, east of North English, Iowa.
And what was your folks' name?
Murray and Bessie Ponchard Hall.
And what was their roots? Were they, their grandparents settle over here in Iowa?
Yes, England and France for my grandfather Ponchard. And then my father's parents were mainly English also.
What was your dad's occupation?
He was a farmer.
Down by...
east of North English, yes.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have 8 brothers and sisters.
Where did you fall in there?
I'm the eldest of 9.
Yeah. And where did you go to grade school?
I went to grade school at Hickory Ridge, that's east of North English, to a country school.
Was this a, okay, let's show a picture of this right now. And when you were going to this school, Marge, how many suppose all told students were going there?
Probably around 20.
That's a good sized country school.
Yes, it was a good sized school, yes.
You remember your teacher's name?
Oh yes, Trela Humphrey was my first teacher. Then I had another teacher, Mary Walsh, and my last teacher was Ida Jones.
This was when you were probably in what grade?
First or second grade.
That is her, the third from the left in the front row. Very nice. This is a picture of your father and mother?
Yes. Murray and Bessie Hall.
Very good. Did you raise a family?
Yes, my husband and I have 3 daughters.
And what was your occupation during your adult years?
Teaching.
I'm going to go back into your childhood, and I'm going to stir up a lot of memories for you. Talking about growing up on the farm in the 30s. You were the oldest of 9 children.
Yes.
So this meant you were probably a farmhand for your dad, as far as your dad was concerned. And did you get involved in helping him milk cows?
Oh yes, milked cows and fed the chickens. And
of course, back in those days, you didn't have electricity.
Oh, definitely not. No, it was doing the milking by hand.
Now, how would you see in the barn after dark in the wintertime?
I usually had a lantern.
And did you ever get involved with getting kicked by a cow, or the cow kicking your...
Cow's name was Dorothy. I had this enormous bucket, and I was milking along, and all at once she decided to kick, and my milk went directly into the little trough, it was, beside the stanchions.
The gutter.
Gutter-like, yes.
Say it like it is. The gutter. And did your dad, in using these lanterns in the wintertime, do you ever remember your dad having an accident with the lantern around the barns or anything?
No, we didn't. We always had to be taught to be careful.
When you think back, that was kind of dangerous to have it around so much straw, the lantern. And
it was dangerous, yes.
Did you have a lot of cats that would line up behind you and you'd used to squirt milk into their mouth?
Several cats. We had an old cat, and we called her Grandma. And she raised anything that came along. She raised a rabbit once in the last stall of the chicken house. And when the rabbit was large enough, one morning we went out and it was gone. So, and they hadn't eaten it, I'm sure.
Speaking of the chicken house, was that one of your jobs to clean the chicken house on Saturday mornings?
Oh, yes.
I can imagine you look forward to that with glee.
Yeah, we didn't really enjoy it, but it had to be done.
One of those things that had to be done. And did you get involved in slopping the hogs?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, very definitely.
What would have been your job at haying time?
Usually pulling the You'd use a horse and you'd pull, and then that would cause the stack of hay
To go up in
to
the
go
barn.
up into the hay mow, and then you'd pull a rope and it would release.
Shocking oats. Did you ever get involved with shocking oats?
No, normally not that.
Yeah.
No.
Do you remember the thrashing? Did your dad belong to a thrashing ring?
Yes, he had his own equipment, and he would go around the neighborhood and thrash for people. Mother would cook meals.
Mm-hmm. He was kind of important because he did a very responsible job. How many
That's right.
people do you suppose were in the thrashing ring?
Probably a dozen or so.
And did you get involved working outside with him, or did you get to help your mother putting on the meals?
No, helped Mother mainly, along with the neighbor ladies.
Do you have memories of preparing them huge meals for all?
Oh yes, pies, noodles, boiling or doing the potatoes, peeling them, and fried chicken.
All the farmers would worship outside at
Right.
a
Yep.
bowl of water and.
Right. You had a wash house, and you'd have towels, usually old towels, and they would wash up, and then they would come in and sit down at the table, and it was usually 12 to 15 men.
A very hungry bunch.
Right, right.
Did you get involved with picking corn?
Oh, yes.
By hand?
Yes. Pick corn by hand is right, yes. Learn to do that quite quickly.
Did you with a husking pig on your
Yes.
on your hand?
Yes.
And you remember throwing them at the bang board on the wagon?
That's right.
The high board on one side, so
Right.
they wouldn't go right over the top of the
That's
wagon.
very true.
How about during the well, another thing that you may have got involved in, pulling weeds on rainy days when you thought you may have the day off, and
That's right. You always
your
went
dad
out
thought
to...
of something for the children to do.
Oh yes, yes. You never had an idle time, and you never said I'm bored, because there was always a job. If it was nothing more than taking a little can with some kerosene in it and going out and picking off the potato bugs.
Would he pay you for picking the potato?
I don't recall that he did.
Down on your hands and knees, and
Right.
of course, when you're children like that, you're much closer to the ground. You didn't have to lean over so far.
That's right. Yes.
But
yes.
that was one thing that had to be taken off the plants was the
Right.
potato bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Depression. Do you have any memories of the depression? You would have been probably 11, 12 years old during the height of the depression.
Well, no, I was born in. Let's see. The depression was 36
33.
or 33.
34.
Just some remembrance, mainly by what our parents would say.
You don't remember affecting your lifestyle because you're probably poor anyway, or
Right,
didn't have a
right.
lot
Yes,
of money.
sure, like
Yeah.
everyone did at that time. And if we had some money in the bank, it seemed like we did as children. You know, our pennies. Of course, we didn't get that back.
Mm-hmm. You have ever any memories of gypsies traveling the neighborhood?
Oh yes, very much so. And they would come by and want to purchase something. Maybe it was a sandwich or something of that nature. And usually then they'd go right on and not cause any trouble in the neighborhood.
You were never scared of them?
No,
Yeah.
never.
Of course, there was no electricity in your house, none of the modern conveniences.
No.
Plumbing in the house?
No, we had
In
to
the
go out
early
to the
years.
well and get the water, bring it in, and pour it in the reservoir that was attached to the side of the kitchen stove.
In the toilet was a little building out behind the house.
But that's right, out across the garden
Mhm.
we'd go. Had this path, and then you'd go out there.
Did your
Yes.
mother have hollyhocks around it? And then,
Yes, we did. Yeah, anything to hide it, you know.
and catalogs.
Yes,
Catalogs
Sears
for
Roebuck or Montgomery Ward, not toilet tissue like today.
yeah. And of course, you could always sit there and look at the catalog.
A wish book.
Do you have any memories of where you had to go out there in the middle of the night or after dark and
Yes.
be scared
yes.
to death?
Right, but
Something
usually,
was going to grab you.
right, usually a couple of us girls would go at the same time. My sister younger than I.
Was wash day, was that a big day?
Yes, it was a very big day with 11 people in the family. And it was washing on the board. We had a wooden washing machine. Now I'm talking about the outside being wooden. And the night before, on Sunday night, we would have to put water in this tub. And then it would cause the wood to swell so that it wouldn't leak in the shed where we did the washing. And then finally, when my, be the third sister or fourth was born, Dad got Mother a Maytag washing machine. And that was the greatest thing. Because by that, and what he had done, even though we didn't have electricity, he had 2-cylinder engine, little engine, and then he made a belt, or had a belt, and then that run from the motor on the washing machine, and then you didn't have to do any hand work to get it to go. But with the wooden one, yes, there was a place on the side, and you run this back and forth, and that sloshed the clothes around.
How'd your mother dry them?
Out on the clothesline. Wintertime, froze, dry. That's all.
In the wintertime, she would go out and gather them up, and they was all as stiff as a
Board.
stiff as a board. And she would bring them in layers and pile them on the kitchen table.
Right, or hang them up someplace for them to dry.
Yeah. Was your house on wash day? It was a Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
There would be clothes hung from one end of the house to the other on
Correct.
ropes stretched throughout.
That's right. Yes.
What kind of games did you kids play as kids? Do you remember?
Hide and seek, marbles, jacks and all that.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any neighbor kids that you played, chummed around with?
Not very many, no. We really didn't.
How about a big garden? Did your mother have a
Very
big garden?
much of a big garden, yes. Potatoes and any and everything that one raises in a garden. Plus, I also raised watermelon and muskmelon.
When it was time to can peas or pick green beans, was all of the children involved in this,
right,
whether they wanted to be or not?
Right, and she wouldn't allow us to pick beans until after the dew had left the vines, because otherwise they would rust. Mm-hmm.
Butchering your own meat. You remember your dad butchering hogs and pigs, or hogs and cows?
Right, that's right. We would do that in the winter, and Mother would can it. They would also make sausage, links that is, or sausage in patty form, and we would render the lard, and then, let's see, we used to make head cheese now and then too, because they always used to say that you always kept everything from the hog except the squeal. Or the squeal.
Did you remember your folks cooking the ears and frying the ears up?
No, I don't remember that.
Or tongue, making pickled tongue?
Oh, yes. Very good. Today, I don't know whether I'd eat it today or not.
Ellen don't know what we're talking about here.
It's lesson in learning.
Do you remember how they used to clean the hogs? Remove the hair from them?
Oh, yes. You dip it in this big tank-like
barrel or tank.
Yes, and then you would lift it up out of the water and then scrape down, and then if the hair didn't come off quickly, then you would dunk it again, and then you kept doing it until it was ready to come off.
Did your dad string them up in the corn crib probably and with a blocking tackle and lowered it up and down into
That's right.
Into the
That's
barrel?
right. That's the way we did it.
Then they'd take a knife, and 2 or 3 people would take a knife and start scraping.
Right. That's true.
Did your mother make homemade soap out of the renderings then?
She made homemade soap, some, but not a lot. I don't think we used Feld naphtha.
How did you preserve the meat?
If it were pork chops, you'd fry them some. You would take a ceramic a container, like a 2 or 3 quart or maybe 5 quart jar. You would lay the cooked pork chops in there, and then when you had them layered to the top, then you would dump liquid, which was lard, over the top of it, and then that preserved it. And you could do the same way with sausage. Yeah, that would be the patties rather than the links. And
That
of course,
was very, very tasty eating.
Most definitely. Yes.
The summertime, any fond memories of the summertime? And do you have a
Swimming
creek?
in the river.
Do you have a creek to swim in or a river to swim in?
Yes.
To cool
Mother
off?
made my sister and I swimming suits, and we would wear them.
How close were you to your brothers and sisters? Were you quite a bit older than they were, or were you all
my
pretty close?
my first 3 brothers and sisters. Had 1 sister and 2 brothers. We were close, and then there's 5 years then between the 5th child and the other 4. So I'm closer now to the younger ones than I was at that age.
In later years, when you'd all get together, your brothers and sisters, were your folks still alive?
For a few years, yes.
Yeah.
My father passed away at 59 and mother was 69.
You'd sit around and discuss all the remember whens,
Right.
things you probably thought your folks didn't know or you didn't want them to know, and you'd start talking about it.
Right, that's very true, yes. It was a fun time. We still get together as a family each Christmas. Each brother or sister takes turns having it at their home.
Putting up wood in the fall, did you always have to put up wood in the fall of the year?
Oh yes, yes. You'd go out and split it, and then stack it nicely. And I even helped cut wood with a crosscut saw.
This was a necessity. If you
Most
wanted to stay
definitely.
warm, you had to have
Right,
wood put up.
right. Because you didn't use, well, maybe some people used coal, but we didn't. We always used wood. We had plenty to get it from the riverside.
Did you have a nice house?
Yes, it was rather small for that many children, but yes, it was a lovely place.
Have any fond memories of the 4th of July? Would the family do anything, or was that just another day of work on the farm?
No, we would have, Dad would go to town in North English, and he'd bring back a wooden case of soda pop. And that was the only time of year that we ever got soda pop. And then we'd make ice cream. He would get firecrackers, and he would light them and set them off, and we would be interested in observing that with the sparklers and so forth. So it was a fun day.
Yeah. Did you have a creek? Did you fish? Was you a
Oh,
fishing
yes.
family?
Yes, very much so.
Everybody
yes, there
had
was the river. The English River was nearby.
Did your dad like to fish?
I think so.
Like,
He'd
did
go
he
with
take
boys.
you after chores, get the
Right,
chores done?
Right. He and the boys would go more than we girls.
Do you ever remember him bringing home the little small minis, and they would fry them up
Oh, sure.
and eat them
Sure.
whole, or eat them
Sure.
bones and all that?
If you found or got a lot of fish, then you'd call several of the farm neighbors and ask them to come for supper. And so then they would. And someone would bring something if they wanted to. Otherwise, they just would show up and everybody'd eat all the fish they could hold.
In the wintertime, of course, you didn't have television.
No.
You didn't have any entertainment other than yourself or each other. What did you do to? Did you have games that you played, or to keep
Yes.
yourself occupied?
One year, the folks gave us a Chinese checker game. And that, of course, was made of cardboard at that time. So my father thought, well, now that's not going to last very long. So he built a Chinese checkerboard and made it out of wood, put a nice frame around the outside of it, and he used a certain sized drill and drilled the holes, and then painted it the different colors that we would be needing. And we still have the checkerboard. I don't have it right here, but we do have it.
Yeah. Did you have a place to ice skate or sled?
Oh, yes.
A good
Oh,
place
yes.
to ice skate or sled?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. and we enjoyed it a lot. We'd go to the river, and there's where we would ice skate, but Dad always had to check and see if the ice was solid for us. And then we could skate. Neighbor kids would come down the river and skate too.
Christmas. Do you have any fond memories of Christmases when you were little?
Christmas was always fun. We may not have had a lot of toys, but we always had something. Mother was a beautiful seamstress, so she would make garments for us. Mittens. Maybe I've worn many a mitten made out of an old pair of overalls and lined in some manner to keep us warm.
Did she make stockings for you children
Yes.
to hang?
And if we didn't have stockings, then we had little plates, metal plates. And then, in fact, I still have 2 plates that we put out on the chair for Santa. And we would find an orange or something in it the next morning.
Did you, thinking back now, did your dad ever play Santa, or?
No, I don't think he ever did.
They just made you believe he
Right.
was
right.
around, but you weren't going to see him.
Right. Well, we were always taught that, yes, there's always a Santa in your heart. And, in fact, that's what we've always taught our daughters, that particular thing also. And that because someone has a birthday and you want to give them a little gift, and so this is what you would do.
Do you remember, I suppose you had a wood-burning stove in the kitchen,
Correct.
and then did you have another one in the living room?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It was like pot-bellied stove, except it had the framework around it so that you didn't touch or get near it, and heat came out the sides and on the top also.
Did you have the stovepipe going up through?
Yes, up through, over, and then on out through the chimney. Yes, we did.
And you found the children would gather around that stovepipe in the morning to put their clothes on.
That's right.
Or they
That's
froze
right.
to death in it.
Right. Either that, or if we made ice cream, you'd go in and warm yourself after you'd eaten the ice cream.
Where was the gathering place? In the kitchen, around the kitchen cook stove?
Either the kitchen or in the living room.
Oil lamps. Did you have?
Kerosene lamps. Yes, and then we eventually graduated to an Aladdin lamp, where you used a mantle, and it made a very nice bright white light, and where the kerosene light, of course, was kind of yellowish like. I'm surprised we weren't all blind.
Can you still visualize all the kids sitting around the round table in the living room, around the
Yes.
Aladdin lamp,
Yes.
doing their homework?
That's correct. Mainly, well, out at the kitchen table too. Yes,
That was
one.
quite an improvement, the Aladdin lamp over a regular oil lamp.
Yes, it was very much so.
Radio. Can you remember radio as a little kid?
Yes. If the folks could afford it, they would get one of these large B batteries, I think they were called. And of course, you were very particular about what you watched, because if that battery run down, then didn't have money to buy another one maybe. And so we would listen to WHO Barn Dance and the news, and if the presidents had anything to say, then we would listen to that. And then Lux Theater was a program, because that's how we got to go to a movie, was listening to that.
I think that was Saturday night, possibly.
Either that or Monday night, one of the two, something like that. It was called Lux Theater.
And you would sit there and let your imagination run wild.
Right. That's right. Yes. You could visualize those horses going right down that Western movie,
Did your mother, was she a seamstress?
Yes, very much so. Made all of our clothes. I never had a boughten dress until I was a junior in high school, and my senior banquet dress was bought.
Was that
Still have it.
Was that in the era when the feed companies were putting
Yes.
out feed with a print on the bags?
Yes, and Mother would make our clothes from that, we girls, that is. And when I started high school, I had 3 feed sack dresses. But I was so proud of those, because that's what all the girls were wearing.
They were
Now
probably,
you go to the store and buy the same blessed thing.
Was your dad a fun type guy, or was
Yes.
he very serious about farming?
It depends, but he was a lot of fun, yes. But a very serious man when it came to raising his children, letting them know the proper way to do things and stuff like that.
Were they church going people? Your folks?
Yes, yes. We went to a little country church called Champion Hill, and it's still standing. It would be north and west of North English.
And you
or
kids
Green Valley places where we
probably
live.
went to Sunday school.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Was that a day that was set aside? That back then farmers didn't work on Sundays unless it was a dire emergency.
Right, that's true. And you usually had some family in for a Sunday dinner.
Did your mother have a tradition like have roast beef on Sunday?
Chicken.
Or chicken?
Fried chicken. Oh, yes. And pies.
Mm.
There's two things I remember.
Let's get you into school. Your first school.
My first school was the Hickory Ridge School.
Country school.
Country school,
Mhm.
yes. I used to walk. We had 2 miles to go.
When your mother had to get 8 children into school, she had to clean them up.
Right.
Living on the farm in that day and age, how did you get cleaned up? Did you have a bathtub?
No, we had a number 2 galvanized tub, and then you would fill the tub with so much water and from the reservoir at the kitchen stove, and then the youngest one would bathe and then a couple more would bathe, and then we had a door that opened into the bedrooms, of course. Well, then you closed that door so that people wouldn't see you because you were near the stove. And this is in the living room that we did this. And then you dump the water out, and then you'd start over again for the rest of the children till all of us had bathed and put on our long underwear.
Was this normally on Saturday night?
Either Saturday night or Sunday night.
We had talked to people where the youngest would be last.
Oh.
It's kind of comical, the tradition in different families. Anyway, let's get you into country school. You had mentioned what the school was, and where was this school now? Is out in the country?
Yes, about 5 or 6 miles east of North English.
Mm-hmm. And did you walk or
Walked every day, 2 miles to school and 2 miles home.
and through probably 5 feet of snow in the wintertime?
That is correct. Yes, and if the snow had covered the roads where we, in other words, drifted shut, then Dad would take a tractor with a blade on the front, open the road up, and then we would walk to school then.
How many brothers and sisters in your family were going to country school at the same time?
4 of us.
Did you have any fond memories walking in the spring, especially in the spring of the year when everything was bursting and the birds?
Right.
And
Sure, yes.
did you ever get late to school because you got to messing around in the ditch someplace catching
No.
a frog or something?
No, I never did, but my brothers may have. One time I can remember my 2 brothers were going to try and get to school quicker than my sister Betty and I. And so they thought, well, they would cross a pasture. And in the process of crossing this pasture, there were some sheep in there. Well, right at the top of the hill in this pasture was a buck sheep. Well, this buck sheep was not going to let them get through. So he took out after my one brother, at least, and they had the hog wire fence in the bottom, and then a couple or 3 strands of barbed wire fence, and my brother slid through between the hog fence and the first barb, and he remembers that today. And we were just yelling and screaming, saying, "Come on, come on!" His little old legs were going so fast to try and get through there. But it was fun, and then we took our sleds in the wintertime, and we had a real long hill. It was called Hudson Hill, we called it. And you'd go down the hill on the big sled. And one time I went down the hill, and I wanted to turn and go to the north, but the sled didn't want to. And so I couldn't either turn north or south, and I ended up hitting a great big post, which was, to begin with, a tree, and they had stuck this in there, and it held a gate, and I hit that and fell off, of course. My pride was hurt too.
Did you have, in growing up, did you have any serious accidents, the kids?
No, we didn't. A neighbor, I saw her 6 months or so ago, and she says, Marjorie, of all the children in your family, no one was ever ill or really got sick. And I said, that's right, and we were very lucky. Healthy family, I think.
In country school, how was you taught? Did you have readers?
Yes.
Books?
Yes. My reading book was called The Beacon Reader. And one of the stories I remember was about a story of a dog named Rover. And then we had spelling, and it was Horn-Ash Ball was the spelling book. We were taught history and geography, language, health.
You didn't have Dick and Jane and C-Spot? And...
No. When I began teaching, that's when we started using that.
Oh, okay.
Although the Dick and Jane series came out in 1924, but it wasn't used that prevalent in the schools.
Did they teach you, did they teach the children anything about etiquette, or was that something they learned at home, manners and
No, that was
hygiene?
Both those were taught in school, hygiene and the manners and how to treat people and being respectful, and cleanliness, keeping our teeth brushed, washing our hands. The teacher would give us a bar of Lifebuoy soap. She had a chart on the wall with all of our names, and then when you came to school in the morning, she'd check your hands or ask you, and if you had brushed your teeth, combed your hair, and did all of the things that was listed on the chart, then you got a check mark or a little gold star.
And if you got so many gold stars?
Then you received a gift, I guess, of some kind, plus this bar of soap.
Did she ever take you outside for nature studies?
Oh, yes.
Take you on hikes?
Oh, yes. We went out to, there was a woods north of the school, and we would go out there to bring in leaves or check different kinds of bushes, and also look for milkweed pods. Now, we would bring the pods back, and the inside of the milkweed pod, they would take that inside out, and then those were used as the lining in life jackets back in World War II. And so it would, like a gunny sack, when they were filled, then I don't know whether the teacher did or some of our parents took them to Marengo. That was the county seat. And we would get so much credit for it, or maybe a few dollars, $1 or $2, and then we would use that for the supplies for the school.
Mm-hmm. Penmanship, when you were in grade school, did they have a particular style of penmanship?
Oh, yes. Palmer method.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Were you good at it?
With my left hand, I guess so. Had to hold our paper just a certain way, and the teacher would come around and check it. And then every once in a while you were doing your penmanship, she'd pull the pencil out of your hand to see if you were holding it too tight. And then if you were, then she would say, no, relax a little bit more. And then we would also do some of the lessons on the blackboard.
Did you have any classmates that, like older boys, or were they all about your age?
No, they were all about our age. Yeah. We seemed to be just like one big happy family at school, really.
Did your teacher have any discipline problems with the boys? Or?
No, she didn't.
So you didn't have a dunce cap? Or
No, we didn't have that. No. But I think that was because all the children's parents knew each other, and you would be told, the parents would be, that you acted up at school.
And that put the fear of God in you?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because if you went home and you were in trouble...
Yes, Dad say you get a spanking twice as hard as you got at school. And none of us ever got spankings. So
games during recess. Do you remember what you played during recess?
In the wintertime, fox and goose. In the summertime
in
or
the
spring.
Snow, you mean? Fox and
yes,
goose? Yes,
right.
The
and then, or the boys would build forts. You were never allowed to throw snowballs, to my knowledge. And then in the fall, when school began, you'd play Annie over the schoolhouse. It's where you throw the ball over, and then whoever catches it runs around and tries to catch somebody on the opposite side. And that was a fun game. And the boys played marbles, and the girls would just sit and visit, and maybe you took your doll to school or something, you'd talk about that.
Did you graduate from grade school?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you ever remember you or any of the boys trying to smoke weed seed, or
No.
did the boys try to smoke? Or
I don't know whether my brothers ever did or not, but I certainly didn't. Most definitely not. They used to say they do that around behind the barn,
mm-hmm.
but I never saw the boys do. My father never smoked, so perhaps that was something that none of the boys did, and they still don't to this day.
Heating, how'd they heat the school? Did they have a furnace down in the basement?
No, we had a potbelly stove right in the center of the school, and anyone that sat on the rows on either side of the stove smothered to death, and those of us that were farther away, we sometimes froze. But it eventually got warm.
Did your desks have ink wells in them?
Yes, yes.
Did you use them? Did you have ink in them?
Yes, yes, we did. Scripto was the name brand.
Mm-hmm. How about plumbing in the school? I don't imagine there was such thing as plumbing.
No, we had a ceramic water cooler that was filled, and we were fortunate enough to have a well right on the school grounds. And so then that would be filled, and we each one had our own cup, and we had our own towel for washing our hands and drinking our water and so forth.
In country school, in between classes and classes 1 through 8, was there a lot of confusion or noise or disruptions? Or
No, there really wasn't.
very orderly?
Very, very orderly group of students. You would help other little ones, for example, if they needed help, and I don't recall of the teacher ever having to scold when I was in school, and I definitely didn't when I was teaching.
Do you think, when you think back now, country school and that many grades being taught within the same group of children, that the younger children probably, it was to their advantage, they picked up on a lot of things they wouldn't necessarily would have by listening to the older ones being taught in their discussions?
Yes, that was one of the nice things about country school, one of the many nice things, that you could learn from listening. And if you were sitting there doing your regular daily work, you were still listening and learning. And the teacher never said, well, you're doing nothing. Come on, let's get busy. Because she knew what was taking place.
And if a child was more advanced than another child, he could pick up on a lot of that stuff very easily. He wouldn't be held back by...
That's right.
Christmas program. Did you put on a Christmas program?
Oh, yes, we certainly did, and it was lots of fun. I can remember one time we had a Christmas program. This is when I was in grade school, and the particular playlet that we were doing, some of the students had stockings over their hands, and others just had normal clothes on. But we had an aunt that lived south of us. They had attended the program, and on those of us that had stockings over our hand, we must have had shoes. And this dear lady thought that we were standing on our heads with our feet up here, see? And I can't even remember what the play was about, but I can remember our aunt just amazed that those kids were able to stand that long on their hands, to perform in this program. I can see it right now.
And all the farmers from the surrounding community would come and watch the program.
Right.
Did they ever have oyster soup and card games after the program at the school that you remember?
No, but we would have like hot dogs and pie or cake would be served, and that also brought money for the school. And Santa would come to visit and hand out little gifts to the students and candies.
Do you remember any bad storms during your country school years?
Yes.
Either in the wintertime or the summertime?
Yes, we had a tornado went through probably 300 or 400 feet south of the school. My brother, being 7, had gone to the boys' bathroom, which would have been on the south side of the school building, out at the end of the lot. And he came back in, and I was in 7th grade history class at the time. We were sitting up in the front of the room. And he came up to me and he said, "Sis, the sky looks funny." And so I told our teacher, who was Ida Jones, I said, "Earl says the sky looks funny." So she said, "Well, all of you stay here," and she'd go check. So she went outside and checked. Came back in, and she asked all of us to follow her out the door, across the road, which was an east and west road, and to lie down in the south ditch, and to be very, very quiet. Well, in the process of lying down, one little boy, name was Donnie, he got frightened and was going to run home. I jumped up and ran to get him, bring him back, and placed him down beside me, and all at once we heard this terrible roar. And it was a tornado going through the slough of this oats field. And our parents were frightened that perhaps school had been taken, but it hadn't. But every barn within the sweep of this tornado were torn down. And so being in the country and on a party line, my mother called and asked a lady by the name of Mrs. Ballard to run over to the school and see if we were all right. She did. Everybody was fine, so she went back. And then they put out a general ring, it's called. And everyone, of course, dashes to the phone. It's fire or something. But this happened to be to let them know the tornado had passed and that the school was fine. It's the closest I've ever been to a situation like that.
How old would your teacher have been?
Probably 30.
While I'm on it, and I don't want to forget it later, when you were taking teachers training, did they ever give you any training, the teachers any training on what to do in storms like that, emergency like that?
I think so, or we also knew about it from our parents talking about it. But I'm sure that we received some kind of training. At least we talked about it and were told about it to be aware.
How about bad winter storms where your dad would have had to come and pick you up in a sled? Or
I don't remember that we had any severe storms where you couldn't see to walk down the road. And if we did, I'm sure one of the farmers would have come after us, in a bobsled and delivered all of us to our right place.
Of course, I'm sure that the children, when you got home or before you went to school, you had to do chores in the morning.
That's right. You had to feed the chickens, maybe hoe in the garden if it was a decent day, and then you would go in and prepare yourself to go to school, pick up your tin dinner bucket, and walk your 2 miles to school.
And then at night, maybe you probably didn't, but your brothers probably had to come home and help milk cows and feed the pigs.
Yes, that's what we did. And any other chores that had to be done. Gather the eggs. We had hogs down on an island, it was called, and so we would have to walk down there and see that they had their slop and their feed and so on and so forth.
What were the school hours?
9 to 4, with an hour off at lunch. Mm-hmm. And 2 recesses, 15 minutes each, one morning, one in the afternoon.
You have a picture here of a plaque. The Iowa Standard School. What was an Iowa Standard School?
It was a school that met a certain criteria at that particular time. They had to have, like, the outhouses would be fine. They had to have maps. They had to have globes. They had to have at least 2 pictures, one of Lincoln and one of Washington at the school, water cooler, flagpole, and so on. And if you met those standards, which were 800 points, then you became a standardized school.
Well, let's say you were in a part of the country where they were very poor and they couldn't afford all of those things. Or is this something they always strive, the school board would always strive to obtain these things so they could be known as a standard school?
In the poorer sections, I'm sure they probably didn't have them. But it seemed to me like we always had far and above the quality that was needed for a schoolhouse, really, or what one remembers a school to be like.
Yeah. Was your dad on the school board?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And of course, that was more of an incentive for all the children to walk a straight line.
That's right. That's right.
Because he was going to
yes.
find out.
Right. Plus the fact you didn't want to embarrass your parents, so we were very careful.
Okay, we're going to get you out of grade school. I ask you what year you graduated, or get you into high school. What year did you graduate from high school, or grade school, Marge?
I graduated in 38, but my father became ill in 38 with a serious stomach ailment. And so, being the eldest of 9, I chose not to go to high school that year. Went back to grade school, and our teacher was Ida Jones, and I helped her as a teacher helper, or associate they call it today. And then I took algebra and geometry, literature, and so on. Then I started high school in 39 then.
Did they pay you anything for helping this teacher out?
No.
When you look back, that was quite an experience, a learning experience for you.
It was, most definitely, yes.
Would that have what helped you make your mind up? You wanted to be a teacher?
That's right, yes. She was a wonderful lady. We corresponded for over 40 years, she and I.
So where did you go to high school then?
Went to high school in North English.
Did you, in later years, in junior or senior, did you folks let you date, or was there any dating with young
Well,
people?
you could date, but I didn't care to date. I was going to be a teacher, and so there was nothing going to stop me.
Did you have dances you went to in high school?
Not at the school as much as Oddfellows Hall in North English always had a dance every Friday night. And if we asked and the folks permitted it, then we could attend. But we had to be home at a certain time.
I was going to ask you when you decided to teach, but I imagine you decided to teach when you were volunteering at the
That's
country
right.
school.
Yes, yes.
So where did you decide to go to a teacher's college? How much education did you need for what you were wanting to do? Did you have to have a degree or just a certificate? Or
When I was in high school, in my junior and senior year, we took normal training plus our other subjects. And the normal training consisted of methods and ways of teaching, furthering geography and history, and so on. Then twice a year, in January and in May, we took the state exams. Passed those, and then same thing applied then in our senior year. I also did my practice teaching at Hickory Ridge, where I had gone as a student, and that was 9 weeks long. And then I was able to participate in teaching the little ones, as well as observing, and so on. And then when I graduated in May of 1943 from high school, we received a teaching certificate, which would allow us to teach for 1 year. And I knew that I wanted to be a teacher, so I immediately started to go to college here in Cedar Rapids. And I would go during the summer, taking 9 semester hours or however much I could get into a summer. And then I received the first grade certificate, it was called. And then I was permitted to teach as long as 6 years, but I still kept on going to school.
what was your first job then, your first placement as a teacher?
Green Valley School, which was north and east of the folks' place.
In what grades was that?
We had kindergarten through 8.
And how many students did you think you had the first year when you taught that?
Probably around 15 to 18.
And did they prescribe what way you were going to teach, or could you pretty much use your special style, or was it regulated?
Well, we had a criteria that we had to follow. And it was like using a certain history book, a certain geography book, and I have a number of those books that both my husband and I used in school. And so it was more or less just exactly like what you had done in grade school, except you were the teacher then.
Yeah. Was this give you a feeling of being, well, not important, yeah,
Yes,
or a little
it
bit
did.
empowered,
Yes.
that you could form a child's mind or
Right.
build a.
Yes, very much so. I've had students tell me, and I'm not bragging, I see the one girl today, she calls me often because her husband just passed away within the last year, and she say, "Oh, Marjorie, I'm going to have to call you a lot." She said, "You were the best teacher that I ever had." And what a great compliment after all of these years to feel that way.
I can imagine that would mean very much to a teacher that was a dedicated teacher.
Right.
I often wondered when in doing your schoolwork, nowadays we have copying machines. Back when you had to reproduce something, did you just have to write it over and over and over? You have something here that looks like a copying
Right.
method. Could you show that to us?
Sure.
Marge, this looks like a cookie tray to me. Is there some type of a solution in here that you're going to...
Yes, this is called a hectograph. This would have been an early copier. On the inside here is a gelatin. I used to get my gelatin at Sanford's here in Cedar Rapids, and it came in liquid form. You would dump it into a pan like this. My father made me a pan, and it's still at our farm, but I don't have it. So I chose to use this. So what you do is dump this in here, and then it solidifies, and then you're able to make a seat work sheet or whatever, and you place it down on here, and it will then copy.
That would be your master?
This was my master, yes. So you put it down on here, smooth it out, and hopefully today it will make some copies. And we would be able to make 10 or 12 copies off of this. You would... it's not being wet enough. It isn't. You need to wet it. Do you want to stop it while I wet it? Okay. Now you put your Seat Workmaster down on your paper, on the gelatin, and this gelatin is different than what it used to be. You use Knox gelatin and boric acid, and it will form the same amount of solutions that you would use we used back then, and it isn't doing it again. Geez, let me try this. Shut that thing off till I...
How many copies could you expect to get off of this? Could you make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies?
Probably around 10.
Before the mixture...
Right. And when the mixture was so coated with the red or purple, then it would turn purple or red, and you would then have to melt it down and then dump it back in the pan and then let it solidify again, and then you were ready to go for other copies to be made.
You could reuse the solution.
You could reuse it, yes.
Multiple times.
Right.
Did you ever get any residue off on your hands or your clothes?
Oh, yes, you could do that, but you were always careful with it.
Yeah.
And it was really a lifesaver in getting the seat work done, because you could do like maybe 2 classes on one sheet. You'd have it maybe in the center. You cut it away, and you would be ready to hand it to the 1st grade or the 4th grade or whatever. And this was a real help.
You didn't have to plug it in any place
No,
either.
no. You just had to let it solidify, as this did. So,
It was a teacher's aid that you had available to you in teaching grade school?
Yes, this is called Latta Book for Teachers. It was compiled and put together in Cedar Falls at the Latta Company many years ago, around 1895. And they put out 12 editions of this, and I've collected at least 8 editions. When it first started out, it was maybe about 1/4 of an inch thick, and now the last editions have been this size.
Where'd the name, Latta, where'd
There's
that name come from?
Okay, there's a Latta Company up in Cedar Falls where you can buy school supplies. And in the back of this book, you can see the supplies that can be bought. And then throughout this book is seat work, stories, sewing cards that you can do for the students. And then also there would be seat work that the teacher could turn to. Also, you could find some rules and regulations for doing different things, whether it be health, whether it be history, or what. This would be a big help to you.
Mm-hmm. It would give the teacher ideas.
Right, and the school board would buy this. This one cost $2, but when they first began, they were 50 cents a copy.
Your first job was at Green Valley. How long did you stay there then?
I was there 1 year.
1 year. What was your starting wage?
$89 a month. And then I moved on to Tucker School, it was called, and that was north and east of Green Valley. And the reason why I left was because I got a greater salary. That was $115. So that was a lot of money.
That was good money.
Yes. I stayed there 2 years, and then I was able, and they raised my wage the second year. And then I moved on to Berry School and received more money there, and was there a couple of years. And then I went into town school, into Millersburg, Iowa.
When you were teaching country school, did you have to do your own custodial work?
Yes, we had to bring in our own coal. We had to take out our own ashes. We washed the windows, brought in the water, and swept the floor. Used a sweeping compound, it was called. It was made with sawdust with some kind of oil in it, and that cut down the dust in the classroom.
Did you have a big wood burner or a coal burner? Or
This was a coal stove, potbelly stove.
Did you always lock the school?
Yes, always locked it. But one weekend, the doors and the windows were all locked. At least I thought they were, and I'd gone home on a Friday night. And during the weekend, some gentleman decided that he would like to find a place to stay warm. So he was a man that was roaming around the country, homeless person, and had probably gotten off the train at Parnell, which would have been north of the school. He found a window that he could unlock. He went into the school, stayed the weekend, ate the food that was left in the dinner buckets, and then was gone on Monday morning when I got to school. And when I got to school that morning, and it was a cool October day, I thought, this is odd, the school is warm. And I finally decided, perhaps by looking around and making a decision, that someone had been there. And he left the school very nice, and I had no fear or anything that someone else was still there.
After Green, you had mentioned the fact you taught at Tucker a couple of years.
And Berry
School in Miller. Then you went to town, Millersburg.
Right, yes. And
in what grades did you teach in Millersburg?
I had kindergarten and first grade there, and I had one brother and one sister that were in my class. One was in kindergarten, the other was in first grade.
Did you, when you went to Millersburg, went to town school, did you notice any difference in the children, their manners, their
Not really. I say that
etiquette?
because it was a small town, coming from a farming community. They had the same outlook, I think, on life as we did in the country schools. So I didn't have any discipline problems.
So, what year did you get married, Marge? Or did you get married?
Oh yes, was married in August of '48.
And to who?
Cecil Goodman.
Yeah.
He and I were in high school together,
Well, really, what was
but
it?
we never dated.
Yeah. What was his dad occupation?
Vernon and Elsie Goodman were farmers. They lived east of North English also.
And then, is that what Cecil did? Was farm after?
No,
two
well,
of you
he
married?
helped his father on the farm when he was in grade school and in the summers when he was in college. Got 1 year of college in, and then he went off to World War II, and he was in the Navy as a radio operator. Well, he taught radio school, actually, at Wright Junior College in Chicago. And then when he got back from the service after 2.5 years, almost 3, he started back to university as a sophomore and then finished with his engineering degree in 49, May of 49. We lived in Riverside in the fall of 48 and spring of 49, and I taught 7th and 8th grade at Riverside.
And then, how long did you stay in St. Louis, where he
We
was?
were there from 49 until 60. We moved back here to Iowa.
Let's show this. You had mentioned St. Louis. Why did your husband in the pre-interview? You told me your husband went to St. Louis. He got positioned there or got assigned there.
Yes.
What was he?
Engineering jobs were scarce in 49, and so he was able to be with Emerson Electric and as an engineer, and so that's why we ended up in St. Louis.
And then you got married in 1948.
Right. We were married at the Little Brown Church.
This your wedding picture.
Yes.
Did you ever get back to renew your vows or anything at
Oh,
the Little
yes.
Brown Church?
We were back there twice. Took our daughters back there, and then we took some friends back there. And then he and I went back. So we were there 3 different times.
When you come back from St. Louis, then did you go back to teaching, or did you?
Yes, our youngest daughter was just 6 weeks old when we moved back, and that's Ruth. And I waited until she began kindergarten, and then I went back to doing substitute teaching. So I'd be home when the girls were home, and so I would have started then in '65 again.
So when you come back from St. Louis, you come back to Cedar Rapids.
Yes, we did.
Why Cedar Rapids?
Because my husband had been given a job with, at that time it was called Cherry Burrell, and he was with them for 28 years.
And then you found yourself at what different schools in Cedar Rapids?
I've taught at Harrison and Van Buren. Used to do a lot of substituting and some full-time at Hoover. And Madison, I taught there, 4th grade.
Fillmore.
Fillmore, yes.
You had mentioned St. Jude's. You
Yeah, and then I taught at St. Jude's too. I had 6th grade mainly there.
In all of those years of teaching, later years, when you come back to Cedar Rapids and prior to retiring, could you notice any difference in students yet?
Yes, you were beginning to notice it.
Why? When did you beginning to notice the lack of respect, probably for authority or
Probably
dress codes?
Yes, probably in the 70s, about the middle 70s. And the dress code was wanting to wear whatever you wanted to wear, not what was right. But of course, at St. Jude's, we did have a dress code that you were to comply with that, and if you didn't, then you were either sent home to get, or mother or dad bring some proper clothes for you to wear. So,
In the 60s, did you have any of them leaning towards hippie style or hippie generation? Or
I think that was. I don't think that had come in quite yet then.
Did you Was you the type of teacher that you always give a substantial amount of homework to the students, or
No,
did they have them try to get it done during school hours?
we mainly tried to get it done during the school time, and if they didn't, then yes, they should take it home and have it ready for the next morning to hand in to me.
When you think back now, Marge, what was your most happiest times, or was there any times that were happier than the others as far as being fully satisfied with your job and your teaching career? That was any one position more fulfilling than the other?
No, I don't. I enjoyed what I was doing, and I taught to the fullest, I thought. Something that satisfied me, and I would go home at night with a clear conscience.
You never got burnout.
No, never did.
You always look forward to going to school
I did.
each morning.
I did, and I still look forward to it, even though it's been, well, soon be 5 years since I was in a classroom to do any teaching, that is.
Did you have any daughters that had your love of teaching? Did any of them go into the teaching profession?
No, none of them went into the teaching profession. They knew and they liked what Mom did, but they chose another field, each of them.
What was your favorite grades? Did you have any favorite grades?
Yes, 4th grade, I believe, was my favorite.
Why the 4th grade?
Well, because we really got started in doing a lot of history and geography and things that was a great interest to me as well. And then I think if you have a great interest for it, you can bring that out into the minds of the children. I had one child say to me once, because I was teaching at Hoover, and he said, "You really like history, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, I do. How do you know?" And he says, "Because you know so much about it." And we were talking about the Louisiana Purchase, and Jefferson, and the amount of money and so on. And so he sensed that, and I thought that was wonderful.
When you were in school, when you were still teaching, were they allowed to use calculators?
Well, a lot of them had them, but I didn't necessarily allow them to. They would have to do their math problem, for example, and then if they had any question, then I'd say, "All right, now you may use the calculator and see if you got it right."
To verify your...
To verify your answer, yes.
Can you... Before you left the school system, were they using computers like they are today?
Yes, they were. I don't think they were using them as strongly as what they're using them today. But yes, they were in use.
Can you, if you had your life to live over again, do you think you'd like to teach in this era with all the modern technology, the computers, and do you think it'd be easier or more challenging, or?
Probably would be more challenging from the standpoint of the actions of the children. But I still would try to bring in what I classify as my old-fashioned way of making a good citizen. That's the main thing.
Were you allowed to swat a child in your early years?
In the early years, yes, they were allowed to.
They...
But by the time I finished teaching, no, you couldn't lay a hand on them. You couldn't even put your arm around their shoulder and say, "You did a good job today."
You couldn't touch their body.
No, you were not to do that. And that's sad, really, because there are lots of children that need that praise.
Need a hug.
And need a hug, is right, yes.
Marge, before we get too far away from ending your teacher career, you had touched on the fact that you taught down at the Tanager, the children's home down there, for some years.
Yes, I did, off of C Avenue.
How did you end up down there?
A teacher friend that I had, Beth Cassidy from St. Jude's, was teaching there, and she asked Dave Rust, who was the head of the group, to call and interview me, and so he did. And then he hired me to come in and work for him. And you had to really be checked over to make sure that you were the type of person that you appeared to be.
You had a clean record.
You had a clean record, yes. Straight out of Des Moines, you had to know that. and I enjoyed it very much. The children were so appreciative. It was a very structured group, but yet they called me Marge, which was acceptable by everyone, each of the teachers, and the children knew and respected you and would look forward to you coming each and every day, and I look forward to going too.
I imagine some days you went home with a little tear in the corner of your eye too.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Especially if you had done something or given them something that they really liked, then they showed such great appreciation with a smile, if nothing else.
Much more so than school children in school that had a lot of things.
Right. That's true. Because they had hardships, whether it be at home, in a classroom, or where. They were there because maybe they could get a better learning situation.
Did you ever have any, I take it you did, you got a photo here of a class reunion from the Hickory School?
Yes, we had a picnic and met all of, or many of our old friends from Hickory Ridge School here this summer, the 7th of September. And this school sometimes is called Hinkletown School because at one time Hinkletown was a very prominent town. It was begun by a gentleman by the name of Harmon Hinckley. And he was someone that could foresee the future. And as far as building the town up, they had a post office, a Masonic lodge, grocery stores, furniture stores, and that would have been back in the early 1800s.
Did they have a railroad?
They had a railroad expecting it to come through, but it didn't. It went through south of where they were, so therefore Hinkletown went down, but the gentleman then moved many of the buildings from Hinkletown to a town that's now called Keota, and it is still there, and it became very prominent.
Is that you standing up in the back row there?
Yes, with the striped sweater on.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a brother right here, my eldest brother.
What's his name?
His name is Murray Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Right behind him is my brother Earl. He's the one that saw the tornado happening. And then here I am.
Very nice. This here is from your 50th wedding anniversary?
Right. This is our wedding day picture, and then over here is our 50th anniversary picture. Mm-hmm. And that took place in August the 7th in 1998.
Is your husband still living?
No, my husband passed away 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
But at least we got our 50th anniversary.
Very nice. Did you have the opportunity to spend any time to travel together after you retired? Or?
We did some traveling. Our main travel was daily times that we would go out and take pictures of country schools. I have 11 albums of country schools that we've taken throughout Iowa, and some in Minnesota and Wisconsin because our daughters had lived there, so we'd always take the camera along. And that was a fun day because it gave us views of the different parts of Iowa to see, and then we'd find the old country schools. You'd look off in the distance and say, oh, going to go that way, there's a country school over there. And sure enough, there would be, because they were all styled about the same.
Yeah. I'd meant to ask you, did your Hickory school have a bell tower or a bell in it?
Oh, yes.
Did you use that bell to call them to class? Or?
Right. Well, the teacher usually would ring the bell about 9:15, and they would tell the little ones that were playing along the way to school that you only have 15 more minutes to get there. And
you better
and
drop the frog and run.
Right. You could hear it all over the countryside, really. It was very nice.
You put the... And this is your family. You had 3 daughters?
3 daughters,
Yeah.
yes. Ellen, Janice, and Ruth.
Mm-hmm. And any boys?
No boys.
Just 3 daughters?
Just 3 grandsons and 2 granddaughters, and they're identical twins.
What are your daughters doing and today, and where are they living then?
Our eldest daughter, Ellen, she and her husband and 2 boys live in West Bend, Wisconsin, and she is human resource for mutual insurance, I believe it is up there. Janice, our second daughter, is with Motorola in Harvard, Illinois, and they have a son, Christopher, and twins, Jennifer and Jessica, and she works in the cell phone area there. And Ruth, our youngest daughter, is not married. She has a kitty cat, Spud, and they live in Indianapolis, Indiana. She is with the AZ sorority, which she belonged to when she was at Cedar Falls, and she takes care of the magazine that they produce once a month, I believe, corrects all the stories and writes stories on her own about people that were in the AZ sorority and have done very great things, working with children or whatever.
Did you do you have occasion to have family reunions very often?
Not too often. Hopefully they'll be around for the holidays.
You have them at your house for Christmas?
Oh yes, yes.
Marge, unless you have any other memories to share with us, the Linn County Historical Society, the Cedar Rapids History Center would like to thank you very much for sharing your memories with us.
You're most welcome, and it's been a delight for me too to bring back all the memories of all my life, really. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.